शून्य से शिखर की यात्रा।
मैं नरेंद्र दामोदर दास मोदी
प्रधानमंत्री मोदी जी के जीवन का सार है। संघर्षों से आगे बढ़कर के उन्होंने अपना मार्ग बनाया। जीवन की शुचिता, कर्मठता और ईमानदारी उनके जीवन का हिस्सा है। उन्होंने अपना सब कुछ भारत माता के चरणों में समर्पित किया है और इसीलिए पिछले 10 वर्ष में हमने बदलते हुए भारत को देखा है। इन 10 वर्षों में हमने इस नए भारत का दर्शन किया है और इस भारत में हम लोग आज प्रधानमंत्री मोदी जी जैसे सारथी के रूप में एक विकसित भारत की संकल्पना के साथ आगे बढ़ रहे हैं।
Very good evening. Thank you for joining us here on Business at 9. I'm Nivedna Prabhu. Today, as Prime Minister Modi celebrates his 75th birthday, we witness more than just a personal milestone. We witness a powerful statement about India's evolving stature on the global stage. Across continents, world leaders have come forward to send messages, a diplomatic dance that signals something far greater than birthday wishes. It's a clear acknowledgement of India's growing influence. This is certainly not just about politics. It's about geopolitics in the truest sense. In fact, look at this. India stands at a critical crossroads, strategically positioned, between the West and the East. Now, both sides recognize India's significance. Prime Minister Modi's quotes, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, has one earth, one family. In fact, one future, as today certainly brought the world together to celebrate India's top leader. But before we decode that further with my special guest, let's listen in to what the global leaders had to say.
Prime Minister Modi, my good friend Narendra, I want to wish you a happy birthday. You've accomplished so much for India in your life, and we have together accomplished a great deal in the friendship between India and Israel. I look forward to seeing you soon because we can bring our partnership and our friendship to even greater heights. Happy birthday, my friend.
Your Excellency, I join our Gyalsuks, our national service men and women, and indeed all the people of Bhutan in offering our warmest wishes on your 75th birth anniversary. On this happy occasion, we pray for your Excellency's good health, happiness, and long life. Tashidile.
It is a great pleasure to wish Prime Minister Modi a happy 75th birthday. In these uncertain times, we all need good friends, and Modi ji has always been a good friend to me and to Britain. I'm delighted to see UK-India ties going from strength to strength. I know we both enjoyed the recent England-India Test series, a reminder of how many things our two countries share. As someone from a British-Indian family, this relationship will always have a special place in my heart. I'll always remember fondly travelling to India as Prime Minister for the G20 in 2023 with Akshata. It was a superb event, befitting India's standing on the world stage. So Modi ji, I wish you all the very best for your birthday and look forward to seeing you soon.
All right, we heard some of those reactions, but there's a lot more to be decoding further and to be doing the same. Let me take the opportunity to be introducing my special guest this evening, Ravinder Sachdev, Foreign Affairs expert. Mr. Sachdev, thank you very much for taking the time out and joining us here this evening on Business at 9. Let me begin with this. When you're looking at the convergence of leaders from diverse geopolitical spheres, whether you're talking about President Putin, Prime Minister Netanyahu, President Trump, these video messages, these personal messages are clearly unprecedented because, in a sense, in your opinion, what does this alignment indicate about India's diplomatic influence is one aspect, but the personal rapport perhaps that Prime Minister Modi has cultivated with global leaders?
Thank you so much. A pleasure to be with you and your audiences. Yeah, sure. I think you covered some of the salient points in your opening comments. Let's look at a big picture. Where the world is today. You mentioned the world, it's a diplomatic dance going on. The world is, in a way, reconstructing. A new world order is being constructed, it's being said, right? And I have a model which I use sometimes that the world of today is like a matrix. Various countries interconnected, searching for ways and making their own partnerships. This new world order or the new world matrix is right now under construction. That is one. And in this situation, when the matrix is under construction, there is that diplomatic dance going around. All countries wanting to scope out partners, not alliances, but let's say partnerships for themselves. That's one. You also mentioned that it's not just geopolitics. Yeah. What we are seeing is actually optopolitics. That is optics, which is layered on top of the geopolitics. So that's the big picture dance which is going on. Now, as to the personal, warmth of these leaders towards Prime Minister Modi, there are a couple of factors. One is obviously his personality, his persona natural. He's an ongoing person. He meets up people with a smile and a hug and a handshake. But what it shows in the last 10 years, what Modi has achieved, I would say, it's a M&M doctrine from the margins to the middle. This matrix which I showed you, right? India was about 10, 15 years ago on the margins of world affairs. We were on the margins of the world table. We were not there at the table, right? So what Modi ji has achieved, I think, over the last 10 years, through a mix of various factors, personal, charisma, bold statements, and, partnerships, and, speaking loud and bold about India, our ancient civilization. Vasudev Kutumbakam, you mentioned his his point when he says, this is not the era of war, this is the era to live and let live. Through a combination of all of those, and also, of course, some of our hard, actions like Balakot, Operation Sindoor, Garwan, India is now in the middle of this matrix. So it is a recognition by these leaders that Modi ji has driven India right to the center of the world stage from the margins where it was. And it is a result of his cumulative various actions, strategies, and initiatives.
Absolutely. In fact, talking about that diplomatic dance, the new world order that we're looking at, and all countries, of course, rightly want to get partnerships. That's something Rishi Sunak was also talking about, how in the capacity of what relation that the UK and the India had and how that has also been in focus. But what I want to ask you is, Prime Minister Modi's journey from a pracharak to a global statement is often highlighted, right? But how is his narrative intertwined with India's diplomatic image to project influence internationally, given how we just spoke about and how you put that into context as to what India was looking like before the Modi era?
Oh, no, certainly. As you mentioned, as it seems, yes, from a pracharak to a prime minister, and actually that's a big shift, by the way, if you were to look at it, right? A pracharak of the RSS, I think they have certain skill sets, but they are maybe not so nuanced in maybe administration or running an administrative machinery. But Modi ji, because of being the chief minister, had that ample experience. But still, when he took office, he did not have the diplomatic experience, quote unquote, right? For years before that, there were, issues around some aspects. And so therefore, in the diplomatic world, I think he was thrown straight in. But then he took to it, I would say, like fish to water. His first trip out of India in 2014, when he went to the UN, in New York and the Madison Square Garden event. In fact, I was involved in co-organizing that event along with several others. He just took like fish to water. He did not hold any grudges of the past or any nuances, any baggage of the past. He just started a fresh chapter of his own personal diplomacy and carried forth India's diplomacy. And he was a born natural, I would say. And ever since he has carried it through with aplomb.
As you point that out, and looking at the kind of journey that the Prime Minister has had, let me understand from your vantage point about this, Mr. Sachdev, that there is one aspect of how they have seen Prime Minister Modi's journey. The other being, what has really stood out in this particular tenure? There are defining moments for every leader, because I'm sure that is exactly what has resonated with the kind of messages that we're seeing. It's just beyond birthday wishes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. This is absolutely totally beyond birthday wishes. The birthday is, in fact, an occasion, a chance, an opportunity, a window of opportunity for world leaders to kind of, reconnect with India. Even Trump, for example, right? Trump, the last month or so, or more than a month, had been kind of iffy with India. But then, when at the SCO summit, the pictures came out of Modi, Xi Jinping, and Putin. You're showing those pictures right now, right? They, I think, woke up. Trump woke up. It was a wake-up call for Trump that India and Prime Minister Modi would chart other paths also. So Trump started to, make up for his earlier statements, and boom, here comes the birthday. So it's the right occasion, the right chance to kind of, reach out and spread the warmth and cheer.
I want to go back to the point that you were making about margins to the middle and the reordering. And absolutely, given what we've seen with Trump's statements, but of course, that calls for a completely different conversation. But, the larger aspect of that message that he did put across, but the diversity of leaders that we're looking at, and it's just not, of course, politicians that we have seen. We're looking at a global sense of how this has been put across from different nations to regimes as well is in fact noteworthy. But I want to understand from your point of view, what underlying geopolitical signals can be inferred from this widespread acknowledgement, given the kind of world that we are in today?
Couple of things. One, firstly, India is the largest population on planet Earth. That is the number one. Second, and this big elephant is clicking along at a reasonably good growth rate. You're a business channel, so you've been talking about it. So the momentum of the population, the mass into the acceleration into the growth rate makes for a compelling story. That is one. Secondly, what also it makes a compelling story or a compelling need for world leaders to look to Prime Minister Modi and India is the fact that perhaps in today's date, if not perhaps, I would say certainly, India and Prime Minister Modi is the only world leader who is talking about a middle path. Who's talking about a common sense? Who's talking that the world should step away from the conflicts that's going, that this century should not be a century of wars. This should be a century to live and let live. It should be a century for mankind to live and let live with each other. It should be a century for mankind and Mother Earth. You see climate change, you see, be it any living being as sentient beings to all coexist on this planet Earth. I don't see any other leader talking this language. Xi Jinping is also talking a language not similar to this, but Xi Jinping is also couching his language in philosophical terms. That's different. But in terms of a middle path, in terms of a democracy, we are the largest population, the largest democracy. The next democracy to us is 1/4 in our size. That is the United States of America. So a combination of these factors, which is, propelling India ahead, and the hope which India is showing not only to the outside world. I do see a huge sense of optimism and, animal spirits, if we could call it, within India in terms of entrepreneurship and a go-getter attitude. So it's a mix of those, and then also domestic governance. Of course, there's a lot remains to be done in terms of our domestic governance, especially in business. We need huge reforms, we need several other things. But the point is things are moving at a certain pace. Infrastructure is picking up. So many things are coming together within India. A critical mass is coming together within India at a point of time when the whole world around us when the old order is crumbling, the new order has not been made yet. There is a matrix under construction. So all leaders, big and small, all countries, big and small, are looking at partnerships which can be stable and trusted. That's another, I think, key strength we have. Whatever our foreign policy with Prime Minister Modi, it has been plain, simple, firm, and steady and trustworthy. We are not like the pendulum swinging one way to the other, etc. Every morning or every month or so. We are going consistent, and that consistency wins
Mr.
trust.
Sajay, that's a very fair point, right? Stability and that kind of projection and trust, because like you also spoke about the Trump and the tariff aspect that we've seen, where India, of course, has held its ground, and that would perhaps be credited to the Prime Minister, given how India is being viewed as well, essentially with this particular messaging. But while, if you do have thoughts on that and if you want to decode that as well, what I also want to add to that is just looking at the leadership under Prime Minister Modi, right? In the fact that you have observed his journey unfold the way it has, and there must be defining moments like I was asking you previously as well. But what has really clicked in terms of that synergy for that leadership as well as messaging, in your opinion?
Wow, complicated, deep question. I think a lot of things have clicked. Also would have clicked, I would think, is the team or the team work of the Prime Minister, right? I mean, no leader can alone, lift a nation or be the captain of a ship. So that's also there. Yes, there have been moments and there have been challenges without doubt. I mean, as I was saying, right from the very start of his, prime ministership, the first challenge, if I were to say, in terms of foreign policy was exactly this, the relationship with the United States, right? And therein, he went to the US. There were even speculation, will he go, won't he go? Will he, won't he, right? He went, he participated with full enthusiasm and joy, and he won over not only, of course, the diaspora, but the American leadership also. There have been other challenges, of course, and coming up to the recent, Galwan would be a challenge, I would say, how we stuck to our guns, literally, and pun not intended, so to say. And then the COVID, when it hit, and the way India responded. So India has been rising up as we've been moving from the margins of the world matrix into the middle of the world matrix. More responsibility comes to us. You cannot be in the middle or amongst the few in the middle and then say that I have no responsibility. This, states, large states who are acting as nodal points of the world order, they do have responsibility. So for COVID, for example, in terms of sea pirates off the coast of Somalia, for example, evacuation of our citizens and even other foreign citizens, let's say from Sudan, from Ukraine, from Yemen also, I think, other such trouble spots we've been able to take out. And then the Russia-Ukraine war and that whole, back to your term, diplomatic dance, how we have been maintaining, in fact, we are now even deepening our relations with Russia, at the same time, our relations with the United States. And actually, that duality has also played out, if you see, in West Asia. We've been working on widening and deepening our relations with Israel, at the same time, with countries like Saudi Arabia, in West Asia, Arab Emirates. They're investing large amounts, their pension funds or their sovereign wealth funds are investing large amounts of money in the Indian market and strategic petroleum reserve and strategic projects. And then, of course, Operation Sindoor. So these have been challenges. These have been unprecedented challenges, which I think the Prime Minister has faced. And if I were to put it another way, in terms of foreign policy, I think this is like the duck diplomacy. I very often say that you appear calm, cool, collected, like a duck on a lake, but beneath the water, the duck is paddling like hell.
But perhaps if we were to compare that on a lighter note in cricketing terms, this journey has been anything but a duck for the Prime Minister in terms of how we looked at that particular journey.
I meant the metaphor of a duck, like calm on the top. That's how
of course, I'm sure. Yes, of course, of course.
Leadership is. A leader should never be seen as flustered and upset and all. A leader should always project calm and confidence. That's what he has done.
And that's perhaps what has been embodied with the Prime Minister and his, of course, journey, the way we're looking at. But on that note, I want to thank you very much for taking the time out, joining us here, decoding that further in your purview as to how you're looking at it. But for the moment, we leave the conversation at that. An absolute pleasure to be in conversation with you. Having said that, that's all that we have the time for in this edition of Business at 9 this evening. From my team and I, thank you very much for watching.